Hello, everyone, and welcome to the PSP study course. This is an overview of the project planning processes. Project planning consists of two major sections: planning and scheduling. Planning process and scheduling process. We are in the planning section right now. So, in this slide, let's discuss this section a little bit. Simply, in the planning section, we use inputs and data and then apply constraints and considerations to these inputs in order to obtain the planning outputs. Here, inputs like contract requirements and project stakeholders as well. So, using contract requirements, project stakeholders, and the other inputs, taking into account the project constraints and considerations like resource considerations, value engineering, and stakeholders considerations as well to get the planning outputs. Resource considerations, for example, would not be like a contract requirement, but still it should be considered in terms of productivity rates, skilled labor availability, equipment availability, and so on. Planning outputs, as we mentioned before, like scope of work, project plan, WBS, OBS, CBS, risk, all of these are outputs from the planning process. We will go through all of these one by one upcoming videos or during the course, but right now we need to understand this. In planning, we use inputs considering the project constraints to obtain the planning outputs. Planning outputs will act like inputs to the scheduling process. So up to now in this course, we have discussed the topics of project planning and scheduling, planning development, and today we will clarify planning input and data. So we are here right now, section 1.1, planning inputs and data. The input and data subchapter represents the initial effort of identifying the requirements to understand and implement the planning phase in the initial planning effort. It represents the initial steps of the planning process. Planning input and data consists of contract requirements, identification of stakeholders, and constructability methods. So in this stage, we analyze and understand the contract requirements, constructability methods, also analyze and understand the stakeholders and their needs in the project. Next video, we will continue to discuss contract requirements as a first step in planning input and data. But now we need to review some points. Here, key points to remember or to review. The first one is planning and scheduling are not the same, but are related. Planning and scheduling are different. Planning is not scheduling. Planning precedes the scheduling effort. Planning starts before scheduling. Also, as stated there in Skill and Knowledge 6th edition, planning is strategic, whereas scheduling is tactical. Also, we can say planning and scheduling usually require different skills and knowledge as well. The scheduling process is considered a part of the project planning or planning phase. Always remember this one. The scheduling process is considered a part of the planning phase. By the same concept, the schedule or the program is considered a part of the project plan. In the planning process, we develop the project plan, the big one, the comprehensive one. In the scheduling process, we use the project plan to develop the project schedule or to create the project schedule. And then the project schedule represents the combined timing of the project plan. Next point, there will be no scheduling without planning. Yes, at least planning should begin, then scheduling can be started. So I think these have now become clear to you. Planning terms used in some contexts included scheduling. Yes, sometimes. As we mentioned, the project planning phase includes both the planning process and scheduling process. And that is why sometimes, generally, when we say planning, we mean the planning phase or all planning and scheduling effort in the project. The planner is responsible for the development of the project schedule, while the project management is responsible for the overall project planning effort. Overall planning effort means the project plan. So the planner is usually not responsible for the project plan. He or she would be responsible only for the part of the project schedule. The project plan is always the management's responsibility. Planning will not be perfect. Sometimes plans fail. In order to justify this, why sometimes plans fail, we can have like tons of reasons, but the conclusion of those reasons would be summarized into what it calls poor planning. Poor planning leads to failed plans, or poor planning leads plans to fail. But this doesn't mean that the project itself has failed. Here we are talking about the plan in specific. Even if poor planning affects the project's performance or quality, time, cost, etc., we can't say poor planning leads the whole project to fail. Poor planning leads plans to fail. This would be a little bit accurate. All right, just to be clear, there are many synonyms of the plan, of the word plan itself. Project plan, project execution plan, project management plan, PMP, project implementation plan, PIP, and construction management plan, CMP. All of these have the same meaning, I can say. And by the way, this was our discussion last video. We asked it about the synonym terms of the project plan. The project plan is a one of the output from planning process, and it is also one of the input to the scheduling process. Here we have like the general sequence of the project planning, and these we can say are applicable to all projects. The first step here perhaps would be a need for a project. A need for the project, considering the business case, most often lead to initiate a project to cover that particular need or service, we can say. So before the project even becomes a project, there should be a project need here. Then we go through all the options available from the project ideas and concepts to get the project needs done. And from this point, the efforts of planning development start. So as we mentioned before, planning development starts early. The efforts of planning development start through planning inputs and data. We use planning inputs to identify all requirements needed in order to understand and implement the planning phase. And in order to develop the project plan, we use planning inputs and data, contract requirements, identification of stakeholders, as well as constructability methods. These plus some adjustments, we can say, adjustments by applying the project considerations and constraints. Considerations and constraints like resource considerations, value engineering, stakeholder considerations as well. Then the project plan, or generally, let's say, planning outputs, act like scheduling inputs to the schedule development process. And then we can create the project schedule. The project schedule shall be also reviewed and approved by the relevant stakeholders. And the approved project schedule will be the project baseline. Project baseline, which will be used for project control purposes and reporting as well. At the end, we close the project, and these efforts will become like lessons learned, and it will be saved in the organization database in order to be used later for the new projects. As we mentioned, planning input and data consists of contract requirements, identification of stakeholders, and constructability methods. Next video, we will go through contract requirements in detail, and we will clarify all the definitions and topics related. But now try to test your knowledge on these contract documents, contract delivery methods, contract types, substantial completion, addenda, notice of award, specifications, amendment, performance bond, notice to proceed, general terms and conditions, bidding documents as well, and the other definitions related to this topic. It will be a little bit long, but as of now, let's have our today's discussion. In each project, there is a project contract and then contract documents. In light of the above, write a document title or name you believe it will be a contract document or it will be a part of the contract. As usual, you may answer the question in the comments box. Thank you so much.